Richard Wolff just issued his most dire warning yet. The American empire is ending. The renowned economist reveals that for the first time in over a century, the United States faces a competitor that's not just catching up, but actively overtaking it. With China's economy growing at nearly double the pace of the U.S. and a new global alliance controlling over half the world's population, Wolff warns we're witnessing an historic power shift that will reshape life as we know it. Let me show you exactly what Wolff sees coming, and more importantly, what it means for your financial future. Let's address the elephant in the room. The United States is no longer the unchallenged economic superpower it once was. For the first time since World War II, America faces a genuine competitor that's not just catching up, but actively reshaping the global economic order. The numbers tell a shocking story. While the U.S. economy struggles to maintain a modest 2.8% growth rate in 2024, China is surging ahead at 4.8%, with its ally India growing at an astounding 7%. But these aren't just abstract numbers on a page. This shift represents the most significant transformation of global economic power in over a century. The United States, which emerged from World War II as the world's dominant economy with no real competitors, now finds itself in an unprecedented position, facing a rival that's not only matching its economic might, but building a powerful coalition that threatens to permanently alter the global financial landscape. What makes this power shift even more dramatic is the formation of what Wolff calls the new global alliance, BRICS. What started as a partnership between Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa has exploded into something far more significant. In just the past year and a half, 6 new countries joined this alliance. 3 weeks ago, 13 more nations signed on. This isn't just another international organization, it's an economic powerhouse that now represents more than half the world's population. The implications are staggering. The combined economic output of BRICS already exceeds that of the traditional G7 powers: United States, Canada, Japan, Britain, France, Germany, and Italy. This means that for the first time since the end of World War II, the Western-led economic order faces a larger, more powerful alternative system. Think about what this means in practical terms. When a country wants to build a railroad or develop its infrastructure, they no longer automatically turn to Washington, London, or Paris. Instead, they're increasingly looking to Beijing, New Delhi, and Sao Paulo for partnerships and funding. The BRICS alliance isn't just offering competition, they're often providing better deals and more attractive terms than their Western counterparts. Perhaps the most immediate threat to American economic power is the steady erosion of the dollar's global dominance. For 75 years, the U.S. dollar has reigned supreme as the world's reserve currency, giving America what Wolff calls an impeccable economic gain. This system allowed the United States to exchange simple pieces of paper, dollars, for valuable goods and services from around the world. But this privileged position is rapidly eroding. The BRICS nations are actively developing alternative payment systems and trading mechanisms that bypass the dollar entirely. China and Saudi Arabia, the world's largest oil producer, are already discussing oil trades in yuan instead of dollars, a shift that would fundamentally alter global finance. The implications of this change cannot be overstated. As the dollar loses its primacy, the United States will lose its ability to fund its activities through cheap foreign borrowing. The cost of imports will rise significantly, driving up inflation and putting additional pressure on American consumers who are already struggling with stagnant wages. What makes this global power shift even more concerning is the deepening crisis of inequality within the United States. Wolff points to a shocking statistic. While real wages in China have quadrupled over the past 30 years, American wages have remained essentially stagnant, growing by a mere 0.5% annually. This isn't just an economic statistic, it's a stark indication of how the American economic system is failing its working class. Consider this alarming fact. The federal minimum wage has been frozen at $7.25 per hour since 2009. That's 15 years without an adjustment, even as inflation has steadily eroded its purchasing power. During this same period, the cost of everything from food to housing has skyrocketed. This isn't just economic policy, According to Wolff, it's cruel and unusual punishment inflicted on America's most vulnerable workers. But the inequality crisis goes even deeper. At the end of World War II, the United States was more economically equal than most European countries. Today, we've become more unequal than every European nation. The top 10% of Americans now own an astounding 80% of all stocks and bonds, concentrating the nation's wealth in fewer and fewer hands. This growing inequality isn't happening by accident. Starting in the 1970s, American corporations began what Wolff calls a mammoth exodus to China, where they could access low wages and expand markets. While this move generated enormous profits for corporations and wealthy shareholders, it hollowed out American manufacturing and devastated working-class communities. These corporations weren't just seeking temporary advantages, they were fundamentally restructuring the American economy. They built massive production facilities, established supply chains, and transferred technology to China, effectively creating a new economic powerhouse that would eventually challenge American dominance. The result? While corporate profits soared and stock markets reached new highs, ordinary Americans faced plant closures, job losses, and declining living standards. This wasn't just globalization. It was what Wolff described as a systematic transfer of American industrial capacity to what would become our biggest economic rival. To truly understand the magnitude of this transformation, we need to look at historical precedents. The last time the world saw a power shift of this scale was during the decline of the British Empire, and the parallels are both striking and alarming. Like Britain before us, the United States is struggling to accept its diminishing role in the global economy, following an eerily similar pattern of decline. The historical echoes are impossible to ignore. Just as the United States and Germany emerged as new economic powers to challenge British dominance, China and the BRICS alliance now rise to challenge American hegemony. We're witnessing the same pattern of currency decline. The British pound's loss of global dominance foreshadowed the dollar's current predicament. Perhaps most telling is the loss of industrial superiority, as manufacturing and technological innovation increasingly shift to new centers of power. Even the psychological response mirrors Britain's experience, with both nations going through a phase of denial, refusing to acknowledge their changing position in the global order. However, Wolff emphasizes one crucial difference that makes our current situation even more precarious. Unlike Britain, which faced individual challenger nations, the United States confronts a highly organized and coordinated alliance in BRICS. This coalition represents something unprecedented in economic history: a deliberate, systematic effort to create an alternative economic system. The BRICS alliance, with its combined resources, population, and technological capabilities, poses a far more formidable challenge than anything Britain faced during its decline. This coordinated effort to reshape the global economic order makes the current power shift potentially more dramatic and far-reaching than any previous transition in modern history. The war in Ukraine has become a stark illustration of America's declining influence. When the conflict began in February 2022, Western leaders predicted that sanctions would bring Russia's economy to its knees. Instead, Russia simply pivoted to BRICS nations, particularly China and India, finding new markets for its energy exports. The result? Rather than collapsing, Russia's economy is now growing faster than the United States. This wasn't just a miscalculation, it was a demonstration of how fundamentally the global economic order has changed. The Western alliance no longer has the power to isolate major economies through sanctions and financial pressure. Wolff's analysis reveals a perfect storm brewing on America's economic horizon, one that combines declining global influence with deepening domestic inequality. At the heart of this crisis lies the dollar's weakening position in global markets, a shift that threatens to unleash a cascade of devastating economic consequences across American society. As our currency loses its privileged status, Americans should brace for a dramatic rise in import prices, triggering new waves of inflation that will erode purchasing power and savings alike. The ripple effects of this transformation will reach far beyond consumer prices. The federal government, long accustomed to easily funding its deficits through foreign borrowing, will find itself increasingly constrained as international investors seek alternatives to dollar-denominated assets. This financial squeeze will force difficult choices between maintaining social programs and managing mounting debt obligations, with profound implications for American living standards. The middle and working classes, already struggling with stagnant wages, will bear the brunt of these adjustments as their purchasing power continues to erode. Perhaps most alarming is what Wolff identifies as the denial permeating America's political and business leadership. Rather than honestly confronting these fundamental changes and preparing for a new economic reality, our leaders continue to operate as if American economic dominance remains unassailable. This collective refusal to acknowledge the shifting global order only compounds the problem, making the eventual adjustment more sudden and painful. As social and political tensions intensify, the cost of this denial will fall disproportionately on ordinary Americans, potentially triggering unprecedented social upheaval and economic distress. At this historic crossroads, Wolff outlines 3 paths that could shape American economic future. The first and most perilous route emerges from our potential inability to accept diminishing global influence. Should the United States choose to aggressively resist this decline, we risk escalating tensions with China and its allies into direct conflict. The parallels to previous global conflicts are deeply troubling. Both World Wars I and II erupted from similar confrontations between rising and declining powers. However, today's scenario carries even greater risks, as both sides possess nuclear capabilities, making any direct confrontation potentially catastrophic for humanity. A more promising alternative lies in what Wolff calls the cooperative transition, a path where the United States consciously adapts to a multipolar world order. This approach would require a fundamental shift in American foreign policy, focusing on negotiating new international trade arrangements and developing collaborative relationships with BRICS nations rather than attempting to contain them. Domestically, this path demands a renewed focus on economic renewal, implementing policies that address growing inequality and rebuilding the middle class. While this transition might be challenging, it offers the possibility of maintaining American prosperity without the risks of global confrontation. Yet Wolff envisions an even more transformative possibility, one that goes beyond simply managing decline or adapting to multipolarity. This third path involves what he describes as finishing the transition, fundamentally reimagining economic structures to better serve the majority of people. Such a transformation would require rethinking traditional relationships between employers and employees, developing more democratic forms of economic organization, and creating new institutions that can better distribute the benefits of economic growth. While this represents the most radical departure from current arrangements, it might also offer the best hope for maintaining American living standards in a transformed global economy. These paths aren't mutually exclusive, and elements of each might emerge as the United States navigates this historic transition. However, Wolff emphasizes that the key factor determining our future won't be which path we consciously choose, but rather how quickly we recognize and respond to the reality of our changing global position. The longer we remain in denial about these fundamental shifts, the more likely we are to stumble into the most dangerous outcomes. The window for making these crucial choices remains open, but it won't stay open indefinitely. What do you think about Wolff's warning? Are you already seeing signs of these changes in your own economic life? Share your thoughts and experiences in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel.